inflation. What else we're going to talk about? Oh, I think we're going to talk about a little something called Bitcoin. Let me see if I can get the boys in here. There we go. I did it right.
What's up,
Nice.
guys?
Awesome. British, good to have you, buddy. How you doing?
Very well. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I apologize for the bad communication over the last month and a half.
It's okay, dude. You've been having fun. Yeah, I want to talk
I
about your
have.
holiday.
Yeah.
Hey, look, Sam joined. He's gonna go backstage and help us on some stuff. Guys, if you could retweet the space, I'm really happy to have British here. I find him to be a source of logic, straight to the point, without all the mumbo jumbo. We're going to talk about, well, one, we're going to catch up with this gentleman, find out where his background is, why I think he's important for the Bitcoin and the U.S. economy. I think he sees U.S. a little differently than some Native Americans. We're now Native Americans. It's hilarious. Also, he's been all over the world in the last, I think, 2 months. I want to talk about what he saw, where he went, inflation, people, jobs, and then we're going to talk about Bitcoin. What the fuck's going on with Bitcoin at 57,000? So, Sam, thanks for helping me. I'm going to pop you backstage. I'm going to bring. Is this right? Yeah, there you go. B, good to have you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, buddy. I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but I'm a lot better than I deserve to be.
You can't say that. You're getting better, which is good.
Yeah, I remember sitting in a Catholic church when I was 6 years old, and the priest said, we are the chosen ones, and whatever they say, and I was like, 6 years old, dude. I'm like, wow, did I win the lottery ticket? Like, how did I win the lottery? I'm the only one that's going to go to heaven, man. Yeah. And I started like not buying any of this stuff pretty early on. Hey, why don't you tell the audience like who you are, where you came from, and how the heck you ended up in Bitcoin?
Well, I am an investor, and that's been my world since I was 16 years old. I was lucky enough to be challenged by my father at the right time. He was always in real estate, and one day I was watching him negotiate a property deal, and he just got off the phone, and I was standing there, and I was smirking, and he said, "What are you smirking at?" And I said, "That looks easy, right? That looks easy." And he said, "Well, luckily for me, instead of telling me to get lost, he said, well, show me. If it's that easy, then show me that it's easy. Don't just say it's easy. Show me it's easy." So that started my journey onto negotiating real estate deals at a young age, learning what a mortgage broker was, learning what a lawyer was, learning what a developer was, learning what all these things were, and then figuring that out and negotiating these deals, packaging them, and then ultimately learning the full stack of skills that's required to do that, and then eventually selling those deals to investors. And that was my background. I then transitioned from that into equities and gold. And then ultimately, I always thought Bitcoin was a scam. And then in 2020, the light bulb sort of went off. And then I realized how completely and utterly wrong I was for a number of years. So my world's always been investing and, helping people understand the larger game that's being played has always been a part of my life and always been a passion of mine. So, when I was in real estate back in 2005, 2006, you could basically buy a property and immediately the day after it, refinance the property, which, in the UK, you can't do that right now. The instant remortgage strategy was very, very simple to implement. And a lot of people didn't understand that this is how bigger investors were acquiring so much property so quickly. And so helping people understand that was quite important for me. And I think that set the sort of the framework for the direction that my career went in afterwards. But that's my background overall.
Well, your dad's still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find he's still doing real estate?
He's more retired now. He's managing the real estate they have, but yes, he's not actively involved in real estate now. No.
Yeah. Have you been able to show him because I go through this with my brother all the time. I get distributions. I'm like, cool.
Just give me 1 second. I've got a phone call coming in. Let me just hang up in the hotel. Okay.
No problem. Hey, while we're waiting, we got Rajesh calling in from London. Awesome dude. Or as he calls it, the city of London, Satan's little village on the hill. Love this guy's humor. Hello from Germany, road trip skin. Hey, like I've been telling my guys, I want to do these a little bit earlier because I think there's a very large European, Middle Eastern, and Indian population that would like to have this information. So if you like that idea, flick it out to your peeps in India and Russia and wherever. The other thing I think we need to do is start some translation for people that in other countries. It makes it easier for them to understand. Mr. Merchant says, hello from Dubai. Dude, are you digging how connected that we can, like would never have met you. Well, you and I might have met actually at some point in our lives, but
Probably.
Bitcoin wrapped is really expanding my universe of people. I find it amazing that one subject, not to like go too deep down the rabbit hole here so quickly, but I find it very interesting. A subject around finance and economics could bring so many different people together.
Yeah, because it's a firstly, I want to apologize for the interruption. I'm still traveling, so I'm in hotel rooms.
It's no problem. So. It's the life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so it is remarkable how many different personalities and everything else Bitcoin connects together, because fundamentally it addresses the number one problem that every single person has in humanity. It's a 230-year-old problem, and it's the financial subjugation of every single person's hard work and labor, and Bitcoin solves that issue. So of course, this is going to unite everyone. It is the one religion that makes sense, right? That everyone can pay attention to, everyone can accept, everyone can agree on. That's why it's amazing to me how quickly it's becoming a major talking point, especially in the U.S. presidential elections. That was not on my bingo card at all for this cycle. So, yes, that's why, because it affects everyone.
Yeah. And we're going to get to that. So you've been on holiday. You've been basically a lifelong entrepreneur. You've been rolling around. What parts of the world you've been in, man? I don't want to dox you, completely, but
Asia, Europe, and South America.
Yeah,
a little bit of the U.S. too. I do from time to time.
Yeah, this last trip though that you were on, I think
this last trip was mainly Europe. Well, I was in South America. And then I left, and then I was in Europe, and now I'm in the Middle East.
Oh, cool. What are you seeing, man, as you travel? Inflation, the population. What people working? Are they happy?
The one thing that you notice, which is quite fascinating, is the one thing that everybody knows but nobody really talks about, which is the fact that the richer you are, the better this world is for you right now, right? If you are poor, this world completely and utterly sucks, no matter where you are in the world, right? Whether you're in Dubai, whether you're in Spain, where I was, whether you're in London, whether you're in South America, the richer you are, the better the world is, right? It's just simple as that. I was quite surprised. I'll tell you the things I was surprised by, right? Because we all know Europe is having a tough time right now. That's not a surprise. What was surprising was I went to Madrid. Madrid in Spain is very unique because in a socialist left-leaning country, Madrid has a very right-leaning mayor and governor, right? And so Madrid, I was amazed at how safe Madrid felt. I was amazed at the quality of things in Madrid. I was amazed at how, the moment that a crowd was forming and it would get slightly too big, and you thought, what, it'd be kind of good if there was a little bit more police presence here, just like it was almost like they just could read your thoughts, and suddenly the police was immediately there, just making sure everything was okay. And that was quite remarkable. I was sitting on, one of the issues we've got in London right now is you can't wear a nice watch anywhere, right? Like I'm sure you've seen it as well. It's ridiculous. You sit on the side drinking a coffee and someone could stab you for your watch. It's and in any area, by the way, right? So, Madrid overall was quite surprising to me. It gave me hope for the pockets of Europe that are actually quite safe. And it made me realize that, if Madrid can do this while Barcelona is a shithole, right? And with all those problems, well, then is there an agenda here for this? Right? Because you can't have one place being able to do it and another place not being able to do it in the same country. Because surely you would just go, okay, well, that works, so let's do that. So then it makes you wonder whether there's an agenda. And I don't want to get too conspiratorial about it. But certainly, if you read the United Nations replacement migration reports and everything else that are happening for our countries, you can understand what's going on and why certain places, it seems like, are being selected to sort of be the safer havens, right? Switzerland being one of them, Madrid inside of Spain being another one. And I had a wonderful time in Madrid. It was one of the places I would actually consider being in for part of the year. Then I went to London, and London is completely, deteriorated beyond my expectation, which is quite shocking. When I was in London a year ago, normally I go twice a year now, but I missed it, and I went once, a year later. The streets were dead at 8-9 p.m. On the busiest days. Commerce is slowing down. The quality of service is slowing down. I get better service when I'm in Colombia than I do in London, right? There's no real ambition going on in the United Kingdom. They've stripped away the desire to be ambitious. The tax incentives are for the people that are at the extreme wealthiest of the band. And they've basically made it a place of no hope for people who are all the way up to upper middle class, which is terrifying, right? And so now, today in the UK, we have a general election, and we're about to swing, based on the opinion polls, 70% to the Labour Party, which is the left-leaning party. So I don't have much hope, and I always have hope, rather, that's the wrong word. I don't have much good feeling about the next 5 years for the United Kingdom. At this point, we'll see what happens. But London is London. London can change its tune at any point. It is remember, I always like to remind my American friends, right? You guys are having a great Independence Day today, but the United Kingdom took over half of the world from a fucking island, right? We didn't go find some land, right? We didn't go find some land that you can't invade from any direction, right? This is an island that it took over the world from. So if once the UK finds its grounding again, it will resurge very, very quickly. But we're in troubled times right now. And that's what we've got. And right now I'm in the UAE, and everything, this feels like what, America, quote unquote, 2.0 should feel like. Business is easy. There's capital's flowing. People can come here, and then you can go from, an absolute immigrant to super successful in this one country. There's opportunity everywhere. It's a young market. Things are growing. People are coming. That 90% of the people here are immigrants. They don't have any of the issues that are going on in London or Europe or anywhere else. And it makes you wonder, what are the lessons that are not being learned from a place like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and the UAE that should be being applied in London?
Yeah, I think the example, I think, best, that when you bring the UAE into it relative to like Madrid or London, is that very similar to the financial industry. You're asking London to build on top of something that's already not working,
right?
And whereas Dubai was able to build it from scratch with a new view, everything's brand new. I mean, when I look around America, I travel a lot. Dude, the bridges are decaying. Okay,
Collapsing. Yep.
The everything, like, you talk about conspiracy, and it's either pick one. It's either conspiracy, like you people are doing this as a construct for some outcome, or you're so ignorant you're bordering on criminal. So which is it? Which do you want to pick? Do you want to pick total incompetency?
Yep.
Or are you just criminals and you're just trying to subjugate like another? Because like you said something about the middle class in London. I'd love you to define what the middle class in central London looks like
Yeah,
within the M25, dude.
M25. Yeah, yeah.
What's
It's
middle
tough.
class?
You know what is middle class? It's probably a property where, you know, living in a home worth over 600,000 is which, you know, is probably what, 700,000 dollars, something like that. You know, it's absolutely not middle class, right? I've seen people I was having conversations with in London are telling me they're moving back to India, they're moving back to parts of Africa that they came from, and these are well accomplished people, right? I just met a lawyer here in Dubai who's making more money implementing contracts for English common law by working through Dubai for businesses that want to do contracts in English common law than he was in the United Kingdom. It's unbelievable, right? We've completely hampered business. We've completely taken away incentives. And it's quite shocking that NVIDIA is worth more than the entire UK stock market.
Whoa, didn't know that metric. That's amazing.
It's
NVIDIA is
terrifying.
worth more than the entire UK stock market.
Yeah, it's
Shocking.
terrifying, and this shouldn't be the case, right? This is London we're talking about. This should not be the case. We've got all of the best infrastructure. We've got all of the best ability to do business around the world. We've got all of the best, you know, when you talk about knowledge work, who doesn't want to go to London if it is a safe place? Every person I speak to in Dubai, right, tells me Dubai is great, but if there was a place in Europe that was safe, that didn't have any taxes, that had all the things that Dubai has, and probably some good weather,
And
I
some
would
great
probably be there.
restaurants. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. I'd be there, right? So, you know, Dubai is right now, most people do Dubai and Europe. It's like a 50-50 split that most people are doing on a yearly basis. So, you know, there's a lot that London can do, but we're just not doing it, you know, and, you know, we've had an incompetent political party for 14 years. The day I decided not to vote anymore for the Conservatives, by the way, I've only ever voted Conservative, which is our Republicans, right? My whole family voted Labour, and I was the first one to vote Conservative, and I've only ever voted Conservative. But I decided not to vote for them. Most people don't even know this happened, right? There was a fair election for a party leader. Her name was Liz Truss. Liz Truss was fairly elected by all of the party members, like myself and everyone else, that are, you know, card-carrying conservatives. And within 6 weeks of her being prime minister, she was kicked out. And what people don't realize is that was a central bank coup on the politics of the United Kingdom, because she implemented the most conservative, tried to implement the most conservative tax plan since Margaret Thatcher. It was fantastic. It was a bit too much, right? Like in terms of like speed of implementation, but it was fantastic. Unbelievable tax breaks. It would have brought innovation, capital, everything back to the United Kingdom. And the Bank of England went and sold British debt to try and cause disruption in the market. And as soon as the Bank of England came out and put an article out there saying, we don't think this prime minister has, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but basically they said, we don't agree with these plans. 6 weeks later, she was gone. And then there was a race. And conveniently, no one else competed with Rishi Sunak. So Rishi Sunak, our prime minister, is the chosen one. And he's now going to cost the Conservatives an 80-seat majority, which is what Boris Johnson had created for us, and now put the United Kingdom into the hands of the left-leaning party Labour for the next 5 years.
I love talking British and EU politics with Americans in front of Americans, because like it's so complicated, and you realize how much we don't know about our own constitution and our own process, but we really don't know much about the other process. We know nothing about how the EU works.
Yeah.
So your view is 700 grand US dollars is middle class. Is that the low end? Because
That's probably
I don't,
no, that's
I
upper
don't think
middle.
you're going to buy a
More.
home.
Yeah, that's
Huh?
upper middle
Yeah.
middle class.
Really, you think that's upper middle, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. I think it's that. I think if you're making 700, it's going to be very, very.
Well,
you didn't say
I
you're
think that
making
was the
700.
value of
You
the
said
house.
you had a
Hold on,
$700,000 house.
that was the house, right? I wasn't talking about income there. If we're talking about income, you're probably talking around 90 to 190 to 100,000 plus. You're probably middle class and up.
What's the tax rate for $100,000
I would
employee
have to,
in
I
the
haven't
UK?
paid UK taxes because for a long time because I'm smart enough to leave the
Yeah.
country that
But if
is
you're on the
not.
M25 though, you're 48,
If you're
50?
if you're stuck in there, no, I think it's probably the 35% band, and then above 140,000, it's probably 45%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't live on 65, take home 65 grand. Dude. It'd be really
Can you
hard for me.
imagine? Can you imagine? You're working literally 50% of the year just for the government. By the way, the craziest part was I went back to London and I was
Say that last
driving.
part though. Say that last part. You're working 50% of the time, 4 hours a day.
Right, 4 hours a day, you're working for the government that's not even using the money to make your city safe. So you're working 50% of the time for the government. And when you step out of your office to get home, there's a chance of you getting stabbed for a fucking phone. That's what's going on. That's how terrible the government has been.
This is my problem with taxes, man. I'm happy to pay taxes, but fucking spend it on something that's valuable. Like,
Right.
get some metrics, okay? Build something, expand. My God, man, all you do is waste. Like,
Right.
y'all don't do anything that's positive.
Right.
To
You
me,
know,
this is
people
not
think that.
impossible to fix either.
Right. People think that, there's zero taxes in Dubai. It's not the case. There's sales taxes here. There's stamp duty when you buy a property. There's no like ongoing property taxes, but there's stamp duty when you buy a property. There's all these little taxes, consumption taxes. Completely fine with consumption taxes. And guess what you
What is
get?
consumption tax in the UA?
Uh, Consumption tax to me is basically any tax that's on an item that I am choosing to consume, right? I don't want to pay taxes on earnings and I don't want to pay tax on capital gain because I think that hampers capitalism. But if I then choose to, because of this beautiful country that I'm in, to go buy a car, right? To celebrate my success, I have no issue with paying 5 or 10% on
I
that
agree
car,
with you, man.
right?
I like
So,
consumption tax. I think it helps demand. It monitors demand, right?
right. Right. So, but again, look at the advantages of being in the UAE. I can go out anywhere at any time with a watch, with anything. There's absolutely zero issue of anything happening. It's one of the safest countries in the world when it comes to keeping women safe, children safe. If I was married and I had children, I would have zero issues with my wife and children going out with whatever diamonds, jewelry, whatever they wanted to wear in Dubai. Not a single thing would happen to them at all. People have so many misconceptions about different places in the world. And I believe, again, that's orchestrated to make sure that you don't start demanding that from your own politicians.
Totally agree. What do you think when you look at the EU and that clusterfuck of NATO gluing together a bunch of countries did nothing to assimilate 20 million people coming in from all over the world, different religion, different beliefs, different food, different language, different everything. The Brits pulled out. You can call Brexit a disaster. I thought Brexit was the right move by hook or
It
crook
was the right move. I voted
for
for it.
the UK for sure, dude. Now the question is, what does the EU do? Because Germany's broke, like totally broke. How does the EU even hold together, man, and
Yeah.
not go into civil unrest?
Yeah, the plan here, just in case anyone in America is unaware, the plan here is to get the United Kingdom back into the EU, right? And the way they'll do this is by basically saying that we've left the EU, causing a little bit of drama, and then eventually getting things so bad that we start doing we start asking for another referendum. And in case anyone thinks that, oh, Brexit hasn't worked, it's been 8 years. Firstly, it took 5 years to sort the thing out, right? Secondly, the fact that I'm a British citizen, and if I was resident in the United Kingdom, I cannot buy a US SEC approved ETF from any broker. Did you know that?
Say that again. If you're a UK
I,
citizen,
as a UK citizen and a UK resident, cannot buy a US SEC approved listed ETF. I can't go and buy QQQ as a British citizen.
really?
Did you know that?
I did not know that you couldn't buy
Right.
QQQ.
So this is part of the EU MiFID rules, which is the way for the EU to control its financial markets. And the rule is this: you cannot buy a US listed fund unless there is some other bureaucracy called key information documents available for that particular fund. And what they do instead is say, here's a German wrapped fund, or like a, let's say GQQQ on the Frankfurt exchange. You can buy that. And that basically goes and buys QQQ. The difference is they charge you 1.5%. They charge you 1.5% for that GQQQ and go pay 20 basis points to QQQ. So it's a way to do capital controls. And so every single British citizen right now cannot buy IBIT, cannot buy FBTC, cannot buy any Bitcoin. It's shocking to any US SEC approved listed ETF can't do it. And that is an issue, right? Because we left the EU.
Can you buy IBM stock? Can you buy NVIDIA?
We can buy individual stocks. Yes, we can buy individual. Here's what's crazy. Let me blow you. Dude. Normally, I don't even talk about this part, right? Because most people can't understand this, but you'll get it. The craziest part about this is how you know it's basically designed to keep people under control. You can't go and buy the ETF, but you can go and sell a put on the ETF and take delivery of it. Right? See, I can go and sell a put on QQQ, get exercise, take delivery of the stock, but I can't go and buy the stock. Why? Because most people are not qualified enough to do options. So there's a way out for rich people, but there's not a way out for everybody else. It is a complete and utter clusterfuck, and that's the first thing that we should have done. We should have aligned more closely with US financial regulations than we did EU financial regulations. The Conservative Party in the UK over the last 5-6 years with Brexit has not pulled out of that one agreement, which would have made a UK a powerhouse of finance for all over Europe. We would have had Europeans moving to the UK just to access US financial markets. And that's one thing that we haven't done that would have turned around the United Kingdom in the last 5 years.
I'm stunned that they haven't launched into the entire crypto world for a country that sells what's the little time y'all do swaps? What are they called? I mean, it's pure gambling, right? It's the spread betting.
Betting we can do spread betting, for sure.
You can do spread betting. Explain to people what spread betting is, and this will explain why crypto is going to explode in Canary Wharf if they just get their ass together. Nobody's going to live in Dubai for 12 months of the year. Like England, Canary Wharf, all the restaurants, all the schools, all the hospitals is perfect for financial center, the digital financial center of the world, and they're going to fuck it up, man. They're going to completely mess it up with all these old rules. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, look, I'll make it very, very simple. Spread betting is basically pairs, right? You are gambling that one side is going to do it. It's basically gambling, but you're calling yourself a trader. Right? That's
and
basically
not having to pay taxes.
You don't have to pay taxes. You can spread bet. But again, look what happens, right? If you look at IG Index, which is one of the biggest spread betting houses in the UK, go just pause when they put their disclaimers up, and you'll see they'll say 75% or whatever of their accounts lose money trying to do spread betting. So if you want to gamble away your wealth, you can do that, right? So again, look what the United Kingdom has created. It's created bureaucracy to stop the lower classes from actually making wise investments. It's then created bureaucracy to let the upper class do it. So what happens eventually? The middle class gets completely stretched, right? You either become poor or you become rich. And that is the end of it. That is how you control a population. And if you get rich, you are going to be, and the crazier part about it is the more that goes along, the harder it is to move from the poor to the upper class. And that's why you have to stop it immediately. But unfortunately, there's been no will to stop it in the United Kingdom. And unfortunately, with the way our politics works, I don't think there will be unless there is a drastic shift in the mindset of the United Kingdom populace.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I first met you or saw you on one of these streams, the thing that impressed me about you was your no nonsense approach. And I think it's because you and I both came from lower than middle income, not like at least at the halfway point of the seesaw. Like I see this as a seesaw. I've figured out how to get into the 1%. Dude, I ain't getting out. Okay. Like I'm going to hold on to this 1%. I really like your perspective of, hey, as an alpha male, I have a job to set up my legacy, the future, and make it safer for like your dad did. Your dad probably put up with a bunch of shit that you're not having to put up with.
Way too much. Right.
Right. So he hustled up through there. But I really like this approach because to me, this is a war at this point, dude. This is fighting for total survival, and people are not taking this seriously enough. When they tell me they can't buy Bitcoin, I'm like, dude, all you got to do is go generate $70,000. Like literally, I have projects that I would pay somebody to fucking do 70 grand done. Okay. So I can focus on something else. I don't believe people are working full time, dude. Like a full time for me is 90-hour week, man. It's a real, like, I'm an animal, right? When I'm working full on trying to gather up nuts, which I feel like we're having to do right now. We're having to gather up nuts for the winter that's coming. I think there's a winter coming, dude. It's going to be harsh.
Yeah, I don't know whether I completely agree with that or not, because like I said, the richer you are, the better it is. And the game is designed for people with assets to just get richer, right? So as long as you have assets, I think it's really the separation between those that have assets and those that don't. If you don't have assets and you're, you've got $10 million sitting in the bank, you're going to have a really tough time. If you do have assets and you got $0 sitting in the bank, you're probably going to be fine. And I think that's the issue here. I think the issue is we have become an asset-centric society. And what else do you do? When you can print this shit, why do you want to hold on to it, right? That's I don't want to hold on to anything that somebody else can just create into infinitum. So it's that I see is the issue here. And I think you and I and everyone else that gets it. That's why I've been trying to bang on about get to 1 Bitcoin, right? And then I get these, excuse my language, I get these pussies trying to tell me, but not everybody can get to 1 Bitcoin. And I have to remind them, I'm not talking to everybody, right? I'm not here to talk to everybody. I've never been here to talk to everybody. I'm talking to the people that get it, that understand the urgency, that understand that their last name actually means something, that understand that most of these people that don't want to get to 1 Bitcoin don't want to have kids, don't want to have a family, don't want their last name to mean anything because they've been convinced that it's all bullshit anyway. I'm talking to the people that get it. And if you get it, you've got to get to 1 Bitcoin, because if you don't get to 1 Bitcoin, you're going to be left behind. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get to that. Why are you so convicted here? What gets you so convicted that this is a correct, like people should really hustle to go get 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoin or whatever they need to get? What makes you so convicted that this is correct?
Yeah, I told a gold friend of mine when I moved I started moving my gold portfolio in April of 2020 to Bitcoin. And then I'd moved all of it. I sold all my gold, everything, by November of 2020. And a gold friend of mine said, why the fuck would you do that, right? Why not just keep a little bit? And I said, if you can tell me exactly how many grams of gold came out of the ground today, I will put 50% of my net worth back into gold. That is the answer to any asset class you want. If you can tell me how many new companies the USA will create for its stock market in the next 30 years, I will take 50% of my assets and put it back in the stock market. But I don't know. I'm not good at it. That's why ETFs took off. ETFs took off because you can just buy everything. But it's an inefficient strategy because you can't create wealth like that. You can maintain wealth like that. But if you have a look at, the S&P 500 performance, it's the top 7 companies that are driving the return. So really, if you got those top 7, you're going to have a much higher return than the person who's buying the S&P 500. It makes sense, but it's also a scam in a way, right? So the S&P 500 is a way of maintaining wealth. Gold has been a way of, I don't know what you've been doing with gold. I don't know what I was doing with gold, to be honest with you, because when you look at it, it's like gold had a peak against the amount of money that's being printed in 1980s, and it's never matched that again. You don't know how many grams are coming out the ground. And then let's go to real estate. Real estate is the most co-opted, government-controlled asset humanity has ever tried to create, right? Because the government tells you how many you can build. The government tells you whether you can sell them or not. The government tells you whether you can get finance on them or not. They know everything that's going on with real estate, right? And again, where when my dad and his family moved to the United Kingdom, they bought a house. It was £5,000. Today, that house is worth £500,000. If you extrapolate into the future the same amount of time, to maintain that compounding, it would need to be worth £56 million. That's never going to happen. So you can only take real estate to a certain point, and we've done that now. We've put enough debt that we can print and stuff it into real estate. We're at a max on that. So now you need something else, right? And I believe that something else is Bitcoin. I believe Bitcoin is the way for all financial markets to take that debt that's being printed and stuffed into assets that's making the world unfair, to put it into Bitcoin, and it's actually going to be a better world because of it. So the world as we're living right now can continue for another 50 years because of Bitcoin. Because unlike real estate, you can buy 100th millionth of a Bitcoin. You can't buy a brick in a house, right? So all these people had fantastic ideas about doing shared ownerships and part ownerships and all this other bullshit. Bitcoin is the true version of that we were waiting for. And I think that's it. So I think when Larry Fink looks at Bitcoin, what he sees is a continuation of this fiat system that we have for another 50 years, because I just print money, shove it into Bitcoin instead of houses. Society gets better because property returns back to a consumption item. People can have roofs over their heads. They can start building families again, et cetera, et cetera. And we start using Bitcoin as the asset to keep the US dollar alive. And that's its next transition period.
You said something just now. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think everyone is at max consumption. All the wealthy have absolutely all the Rolex watches they possibly need, all the charter jet air miles, all the jets, all the villas, all the mistresses, all the land, all the QQQ. Dude, they're max everything. Like this whole theory that we need to steal from the bond market. I don't think so, dude. All the distributions from real estate, bonds, interest rates, private equity should flow into Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
Like for me, it's like, whoa, that's the most underinvested space in a max consumption environment. My brother owns $120 million worth of homes. Stupid, dude. Like, what are you talking about? $42 million for a home in Miami and $70 million in a home in Malibu that's turning into in a state that's a toilet bowl. Like, I don't even, like, one day we're going to wake up, these prices are going to not be there. But I'm afraid that in the next 18 months, these prices are going to run again, dude.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, personally, my opinion on real estate is this: if you're buying prime real estate, like beachfront property, et cetera, I think that's going to continue running because that's really the toys of the wealthy, right? But if you're buying single family homes, one of the things that people don't realize, later on, talk about London property, right? Fucking, if you didn't buy in like 6, 7 key neighborhoods in London, then an average Cuban cigar, like a Partagas D number 4, over the last 10 years has generated a higher ROI than any other property in the United Kingdom, right? So prime real estate will continue to do well, in my opinion. And I think all other average homes they can't go up. What do you do if you're a government, right? And people don't have roof over their heads, right? They don't have roofs over their heads and they're going to vote you out. So what are you going to do? You're going to do what Barcelona just announced, which is we're going to ban people from using Airbnb. They're not doing that to protect anyone. They're doing that to stay in power, right? And that's what I think is coming all over the world. I think Canada announced this. Canada announced last year that if you're a foreigner, for a certain period of time, you couldn't buy property in Canada anymore.
Yeah.
All of this is going to happen. They're going to try
in fairness, though, they were trying to stop the exact same thing that happened in central London with all that Middle Eastern money walking in, paying $12 million for a $2 million property in SW1,
yeah,
and then putting a $20 million pool in the basement, and another $20 million garage, and then butlers are there. There's nobody that lives in central London, right? Like you're not white and living in central London anymore. You're not English.
That's, there is a little bit of American hyperbole going on over there.
Yeah,
so,
but dude, like I spent a lot of time in Belgravia. I mean,
yeah, it's certainly changed. It has certainly changed.
Different.
It is certainly changed. There's a lot of wealth from China, from Russia, from the Middle East. But again, the UK is about to take a whole new U-turn. Did you know? Bloomberg just released this report. 9,500 millionaires are scheduled to leave the United Kingdom this year. That's on top of the 3,500 that left last year. So the UK is I mean, this year, summer, I was there, and there's like no cars driving around. There's no Lambos. There's no with imported plates. There's no Rolls Royces with imported plates. No one's there, right? Everyone's realized the jig is up, and that's what happens when you send a son of a royal sheikh to London for summer, and he gets stabbed for his Rolex outside of Harrods in Knightsbridge.
Correct.
What else do you think is going to happen, right? So yeah, London's changing. The demographics are certainly changing. The United Kingdom is a much better place to live if you're outside of London, for sure. There's no doubt about that. It's extremely safe. Well, when I say extremely safe, it's definitely relatively safer than inside of London. But this is a problem that's facing everywhere. It's the same thing in the USA, right? It's the same thing everywhere. This is the problem. People I always say like the US is going to shit because I love the US, right? And I see the US as like the beacon of hope because I've already seen what's happened to the United Kingdom. So I look at the US and I'm like, this is going to shit. And if you guys don't wake up, you're going to end up exactly how we are in the UK. Now, the US has one advantage. It's these beautiful capital markets that you have, the biggest, most powerful capital markets that you have, and you have the military to protect them. That's the advantage that the US has. And I hope that, people don't go live somewhere else while accessing the US capital markets and not add to America, because one day I wish I could have moved to the US, right? It was one of my goals when I was a kid. Now, not so much, but I hope that changes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the point I was trying to make on the when you said I was being hyperbolic on the central London real estate is if a Saudi sheikh will spend $30 million on a $10 million property and then smash it 30 or 40 million into it, location is the Bible verse, right? The core thesis of real estate. Then an asset class that has no logistical points, like, to me, that's a monster, right?
100%.
It is the
100%.
perfect location because there is no location.
Well, this was really evident to see. The case for what you're saying was made when the Ukraine war started, right? And it's in another part of Europe, but Switzerland, for the first time, seized Russian accounts in Switzerland. Switzerland's supposed to be known as like this, this independent, neutral nation, right? And they seized Russian bank accounts. At that moment, the UAE piped up and said, we're completely neutral. We're not into any of that. All money is welcome here, right? And suddenly the flood started coming. But the point here is how you relate that to London is how long until your country is out of favor with the UK or the USA, and suddenly the $60 million of property you have all over London has yellow tape around it, and you can't get access to it, can't sell it, can't do anything. So yes, that is the case that has been made, and I think more and more people in the UK, the more people I speak to, the more people want to know about Bitcoin. Right, this time around, every year I go, more people want to know about it, and more people want to see how they can diversify some of their profits into Bitcoin. And it's a wonderful thing. It's happening. All of these people that are fucking the world up are the best PR for Bitcoin, right?
Totally.
They are the PR, right?
Totally, dude. I agree with you. Quit fighting them.
Yeah, and I've said this, and some people don't like it when I say this, but Bitcoin is a monetary network. It is not a human network. It's not a spiritual network. It's not, a happy hippie network, as I like to call them. Like, it's a monetary network. So what that means is one person that has $1 million is worth more valuable, right, in terms of the amount of quantity of the network that it takes up, than one person who has $100. People don't like, it might not be a good thing to say, but it's the absolute truth because it's a monetary network. So the good thing about this is all of the people with the money are talking to each other, right? Just like all the poor people talk to each other, all the people with the money talk to each other. So when you get one Russian guy that just says, I just had a $20 million home seized, I can't be fucked with this, I'm converting everything into Bitcoin, he's going to tell all of his pals, and they're going to do the exact same thing. And that's going to spread around the world faster than you can imagine.
Yeah, this Julian Assange thing, would that be the perfect advertisement for a guy that was, I don't know if you've seen he did a piece of work on a presentation on Bitcoin many years ago before he went into
I haven't
hiding.
seen it. No.
One of the best pitches on Bitcoin ever that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I walk away with it going, wow, that was 15 years ago. What if this cat believed what he was saying, stored 1,000 Bitcoin away, gets pocketed in central London for 12 years of his life. I mean, 12 years of your life, lose it, and then come back with 1,000 Bitcoin. What an awesome insurance policy. To me, Bitcoin is that, like, this shit can happen to anybody. They decide they don't like your bald head in London. They just go, hey, we're going to fuck with you in immigration every time you come through here.
Yep.
We don't really want you here. We're going to make it difficult.
Yep.
I want to be able to rock and roll and move, man. To me, it's very
liquidity
scary.
beats. Yeah, I always say this: the speed and liquidity of your wealth will beat the total amount of your wealth. Right? Someone who's got $1 billion of net worth will be outcompeted by someone who's got $100 million of Bitcoin. Right? Because $100 million of Bitcoin can be in Singapore, New York, Australia, London, Dubai, and back to New York in the next 2 hours, right? It can be anywhere you want it to be. Someone with $1 billion of fucking real estate, how much of a pain in the ass is it going to be for you to free up $100 million on that? So, they're going to get outcompeted. And eventually what happens is, once you get something that's just outcompeting you over and over again, you have to divert, right? Imagine you got real estate guys going around the world trying to do business, right? And every time they try and do a deal, they get told, oh no, this Bitcoin guy got it. This Bitcoin guy got it. This Bitcoin guy got it. Eventually, they have to own some Bitcoin.
And it traded over the weekend.
Right.
Sorry, we had a deadline on Friday. It went to the bank, and the bank sold it to the Bitcoin guy on Saturday morning at a 30% discount. I'm telling you, dude, this is what the Bitcoin guys need to understand. The reason to hold Bitcoin is to do trades on Saturdays and Sundays and July 4th when somebody needs liquidity more than you do.
Right.
That is going to be, we've never seen any option premium placed into Bitcoin yet. Not a fucking penny of option premium is placed in liquidity on Bitcoin for that.
100%.
For that value.
But these markets have not even developed yet, right? We're not even looking at the cash flow markets when it comes to using derivatives on these Bitcoin ETFs. That hasn't even developed yet, let alone the liquidity markets, like from what you're talking about. None of this has been developed yet, and it's all coming. And the beautiful thing is, going back to the first question you asked me, which is, like why Bitcoin? It's the only asset humanity has access to, and we've created, that you can put a definitive 1/x on it. That's it. 1/21 million. You cannot do that with real estate, can't do that with stocks, can't do that with gold, can't do that with bonds, can't do that with fucking watches, can't do that with anything. It's the only thing that has a definitive finality of scarcity, and that's why it will win.
What do you think Bitcoin, if we compare real estate with Bitcoin, what do you think Bitcoin would be? Or if you could borrow 80 cents on the dollar at 6%, or what would real estate be if you could not borrow 80 cents on the dollar? I go through this shit with all these real estate guys. I'm like, bro, you have so much leverage. It's ridiculous.
Right. Real estate, they only got wealthy with real estate because Larry Fink created that market to actually take mortgage-backed securities and actually trade them, which allowed people to get debt issued so easily on real estate. If that wasn't there since the 70s, real estate would not be what it is. Real estate would be what it should be, in my opinion, which is a consumption asset, right? It is a consumption. I'm buying a home to live in for my family. It's not a financial asset. It is a bastardized financial asset that we had to create because we had nothing else to print money and stuff it into. So yeah, I agree with you, right? What happens when you can borrow, when Bitcoin gets stable enough, when you can actually just borrow 40% LTV at the click of a button and be safe with it, right? Like right now you have mark-to-market liquidations. What happens when you can take a 30-year fixed rate on a Bitcoin? Like
totally.
What happens?
That will come, dude. That
100%.
will come. That will come. And I get really frustrated with these purists that use Bitcoin to buy potato chips.
I hate that shit,
bro. Well, like it's so against the core thesis because, like, okay, it's superior to the US dollar and the UK pound sterling and the euro. Okay, cool. Then why are you selling it
Right.
at the same fucking price as the fiat? Dude, you should get a 20% discount on those potato chips. Now, if you get a 20% discount on the potato chips, I can maybe understand.
Right.
And the merchant really needs to just hold the Bitcoin. If the
Right.
merchant's just going to convert it to US dollars,
What's the point?
what have you done other than pay Visa a fucking little fee, dude? Like,
I'll tell you what you've done. You've mentally masturbated. That's what you've done. That's it.
like you think you're greasing the skids of commerce with one drop of WD-40, $1.60.
Right. Right. It's amazing to me how many people get pissed off when I say, you know, all of this virtue signaling. That's all it is Bitcoin virtue signaling, right? Like, I'm helping the circular economy. Well, no, you're fucking not, when the person you give your Bitcoin to is selling it for US dollars. And then they say, oh no, but I can spend and replace. Well, then why don't you? It's cheaper, literally fucking cheaper to just spend the US dollars.
That's right.
Right. So all of it's just mental masturbation to me. Nothing makes sense. Bitcoin is in the part of its lifespan where you need to hold on to it as hard as you can. And that's what you should be doing. And if you're letting go of it, you're going to look at your kids one day and they're going to say, why the fuck did you do that? And you're not going to have an answer to them, because you're going to say, I was high-fiving happy hippies, and the only thing I could think to do was spend my Bitcoin to make them happy.
Yeah, now look, I was going to pull this chart up on Bitcoin. We're trading at 57, but you keep giving me little pieces of meat to chew on. So you've mentioned this thing about happy hippies. You mentioned religion a little bit earlier, which I actually think is a very interesting construct here. The one religion that makes sense, I think, is what you said. And then you go, hey, the happy hippie thing. It sounds contradictory, but I am really surprised at the philosophical anchors and the religious principles that I'm beginning to sense in Bitcoin. I've never seen anything else. It's very weird. I don't know how to really talk about it, but like, I think I'm a nicer person, dude, understanding Bitcoin. Like, I actually believe I have become a better human being by understanding this, in the terms of, I value you more than I would have valued you 4 years ago. Like, you as a human entity. I might disagree with you on some shit, but I really value human beings more today than I ever have through my experience with crypto. That's bizarre, man.
My experience on that is this, and my thinking on that is this. Bitcoin is the only thing that allows you to care, right? Because when you're in real estate, you're in business, you're in stocks, you're in everything else, you're trying to beat people, right? You're the only advantage that I have. The only advantage that I have with Bitcoin is, what price did I buy it at? In which case, all you're trying to do is trying to help people buy it at a lower price than the next person buys it at. So it actually is the only thing that allows you to care. Like, let's say there was a real estate opportunity right now in Dubai. I am disserving myself by telling you about it, right? That doesn't happen with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, I'm going to buy it. You should buy it. Everyone should buy it. And that's what I've come to conclude is the difference. The difference is Bitcoin is the only thing that actually allows you space, mind space, to actually care about someone.
Yeah, it's not so competitive.
No.
Right? You want everyone in it.
Yeah, the competition isn't even starting now. The competition starts afterwards. Once everybody's on it, now we can start competing. But you want everybody on it in the first place, because you're worried about, firstly, you're worried about the fact that their wealth is being diminished. Secondly, you're worried about the fact that you want your friends, your family, and everyone else with you when we're entering this world of success. Because who wants to become super successfully, fabulously wealthy, and then, you know, you're doing nothing at 12 p.m. in the afternoon, and no one else is there to do nothing with you, right? You want people around you that are on the same wavelength. And Bitcoin, again, I'll say this again, like, Bitcoin to me is the first time of any asset class that I've ever operated in where it just allows you the space to open your heart and actually give a shit about someone.
Yeah, where do you think we're in adoption? Let's say absorption rate, 100% absorption rate would be, 100. Where do you think we are from 0 to 100 as far as, I'm not talking about adoption. I'm talking about kind of where we are on our journey, and they understand, like you talked about your buddies, some of your buddies come in and they get it. Are you seeing a common thread of those that get it versus those that don't?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think that there is an inefficiency when you talk about the humans that are involved with Bitcoin. I like to look at the adoption rate of capital. And by that, we're at 0.03% or whatever it is, $1.3 trillion out of 900 trillion. With humans, it's slightly different. I don't know, because, again, humanity is an infinite game. There's players coming in from all different directions at all times, and you don't really know what the end goal is. And so from that perspective, I know people that were into Bitcoin, completely understood it, and then got frustrated, sold out of it, and tried to do something else. What do you do with that person? Right? It's like, fuck, like you are actually right there on the precipice, and you decided to go back. Like, how does that make any sense? Right? So I try not to think about it, and it's tough for me because I actually, it's been tough for me even with my friend group, right? And my friends and family and everyone else, because I'm trying to get everyone to realize that you need some allocation to this. He listens. It's not nobody, because a lot of my people did listen eventually, even though they were forced a little bit. Like, it's tough, right? I don't really like to look at the humanity part of it. I'm just here trying to get as many people as I can to one Bitcoin. And that's really the thing that I'm working for. I don't know whether it'll end up being, right now I have somewhere in the region of 4,000 people that have self told me that they have more than one Bitcoin by signing up to my newsletter, which has the requirements of one Bitcoin.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the loose average on the little bit of polling that we've done is just very, very loose. It's like 8 or 9 Bitcoin average per person on that list, right? That to me is hugely powerful.
Totally.
Right? I have, unfortunately, it's broken my heart through my life where I've had to realize that people are on their own journey, right? And it breaks your heart because it's like, yes, it's beautiful in one way, but bad things can happen to you as well, right? And that is your own journey. But it's one of the things that I've always struggled with. So, I don't really like to look at it from a humanity thing, but from a capital perspective, I think we're at 0.5%. Let's say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think what I'm looking for. See, what I think is that, like, my brother's not me. I tend to be a little bit earlier. What I'm looking for is their typical personality, because I think all the early adopters, like, I think we all share one thing in common. If I look for similarities, it's like we ran out of fucking options here, dude. Like, I look at legacy business going, hey, I'm not building another company, and maybe I sell for a 5 multiple, maybe I sell for a 30 multiple, but it's just too wide of a gap for 7, 8, 10 years of work building a company to build a $500 million, $1 billion, $2, $3 billion company. Okay, I'm making 30 million, but the 30 million has no value because the multiples have all compressed, right?
Yep.
I mean, the timing. You go into a real estate deal with my brother, dude, you're in for 10 years. I mean, that's what the contract says, 10 plus 10. Okay.
Yep.
There's no way. If I wanted $20 million from Grant right now, hey, Grant, let's sell my shit. He'd be like, fuck this. You're in a fund, bro. I can't get you out of 619 West Hollywood apartment building number 3B. Until we liquidate. But see, I like Sailor looked around at Microsoft, went, y'all going to crush me. Like, I'm seeing a characteristic coming here that we're left with nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And we see it coming. Like, I see it coming, dude.
Yeah, right? There is nowhere else to go. And the more that it keeps getting proven that just hodling an asset, not being a slave to your activity bias, is the way to go. And we've just had another story with that, right? Steve Ballmer is now richer than Bill Gates, right?
Unbelievable.
Because he just didn't sell any Microsoft stock while Bill Gates was trying to offer you, healing vaccines all over the world that keep getting pushed back from everywhere. It's like,
by the way, he took that job without any equity whatsoever.
Right. Oh, wow. I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know that.
Dude. He took a salary he was number 30 employee. Similar to my story. I was number 12 employee and just kept getting stock options or buying based on my commissions. That's what I would always do. Hey, don't give me a commission, give me stock. Okay. And now this is a really cool message for people. He didn't come up with Microsoft. He came in after Bill, and now he's worth more than Bill, and he was never given any equity. He just found a job, which is my question to you. Like, you're a hustler. How do you tell your peeps to get to 1 to 10 Bitcoin? Like, what's the strategy for them to go create some fuel or sell something and start acquiring these nuts?
Yeah, I mean, look, my thing when I started doing it was obviously moving the assets that I had. So that's the first thing you got to do. You got to look at the band of assets that you have and which ones you love and which ones you don't. Second thing I did was got rid of all my consumption items that I bought, like watches and whatever, right? So I sold every single Rolex that I own and put everything into Bitcoin. And then thirdly, then go and try and do whatever business that you have or whatever extra job that you have to do that. And then those are the three steps to me. That's it. It's very, very simple, right? Um, you either have assets and you liquidate those and get them into Bitcoin. You either have shit that you've bought that you no longer love, so you sell that and get into Bitcoin, or you go generate some money. It's really not that complicated. The complicated part is the will to do it.
Or all three. I think all three is
Or
the
do
best
all three,
model.
which is what I did. Yeah,
Yeah,
do
I
all
figured
three.
you did.
If you have a business right now and you said to your clients, I want to give you a 10% discount, would you see a lift in business? Right? So now what you do is you go say, I want to give you a 20% discount if you pay me in Bitcoin. Done. Because that 20% is going to get made up very, very quickly in a bull run. So there's so many creative things that people can do, but they just won't do because they've got to, I don't know. People have different ways of looking at stuff. And I'm just like, wake the fuck up, because there is only 21 million of this. And now Larry Fink understands the game, right? Larry Fink went from telling everyone this was a scam to launching an ETF to having the biggest Bitcoin ETF inside of 5 months from launch. Do you think this is a fucking game? Right? This is a very, very serious entity that stepped into the game. And it's one of the things that I keep trying to remind people, like the game has changed. So when you were asking me about, what is clicking for wealthy people, BlackRock jumping in, and I said this, BlackRock is now in the game. This is going to do so much for BlackRock is going to do more for Bitcoin adoption in terms of like actual people and capital than any single other person that has ever spoken about Bitcoin. Because they're going to get on the phone and they're going to talk to the people that decide where the capital goes, and they're going to be efficient about it, and they're going to be assassins about it. Do you think there's a reason why there's been not a single outflow from the BlackRock ETF in this entire downtrend of Bitcoin? Come on, like you got to start understanding how this game is spoken, right? Get smart with it and start fucking getting some Bitcoin. Because at the end of the day, everything I'm saying is going to be completely irrelevant to most people as soon as this goes to $500,000 a coin, right? The game is up. The game is up. Like I'm trying to shout at people to get there right now because I'm like, what other choices are you going to have? This is done.
So I don't know if you can see the screen. I just put the price up here. I think this is the daily chart. What can you explain where we have all this demand? BlackRock's not selling. Why this price point?
There's three challenges going on right now. There is miners that are selling. There is Germany that is selling. And then there is Mt. Gox that's selling. And on top of all of that, that creates bad PR, which then gets high frequency trading bots to also sell. That's what's going on right now. There is also $8 to $10 trillion of capital sitting on the sidelines waiting for what the fuck's going on with European elections, UK elections, US elections, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. You got uncertainty in the market.
You said you think that's 8 to 10 trill? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, 8 to 10 trillion, something like that.
Where do you get that data, man?
I was listening to Tom Lee talk about that, and he mentioned that number. So that's where I got that from.
Yeah, I do believe there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines.
But think about this: that's just cash, right?
Yeah.
So how much is sitting in? How much is sitting in the S&P 500? Going when this takes off, I'm just gonna. This is the beautiful thing, and people don't fucking realize about now, right? Because you got the ETFs. This is what gets me excited. The last cycle, right? If you wanted to convert your Tesla, which was running last cycle, now it's Nvidia, right? But let's say Tesla. If you wanted to convert your Tesla into Bitcoin, the amount of bullshit that you had to go through to do that. You had to sell your stock. You had to wire that money to your bank account. You then had to open up a crypto account. It took you 3 days to fucking get that verified. Then you got to wire the money from your bank to there. And then the bank says, no, we can't do it because you're doing illegal shit with crypto. Now you got to go find a bank account that will allow you to wire money into Coinbase. Then you finally do that, get that open. That takes a week. Then you wire the money into Coinbase or whatever. You buy your Bitcoin. Then you want to take it out and they plug you with a bunch of other KYC shit. Like it was a 3-week process. Now you want to convert from Nvidia to Tesla. I mean, to Nvidia to Bitcoin. You click sell on Nvidia and you click buy on IBIT, FBTC, or the other one, whichever one of the other 9. That's how easy it is. So there's a lot of revolution of capital coming as well as soon as this train takes off, and people aren't thinking about. That's just cash on standby waiting to come into the game that people haven't even thought about. But yeah, net, I would say there's 8 to 10 trillion of cash sitting there figuring out what the fuck to do.
Bitcoin dominance. You talked about Bitcoin going to 500,000. Love to talk about like your time frames for that. I know time's a challenging thing, but talk about the time frame for Bitcoin going to like 500,000, and then maybe talk a little bit about how much price pressure we could experience here for the person that got into Bitcoin at maybe 66, and they're like, hey, what's happening? It's at 57. Wasn't expecting this, all this bullish noise. Personally, I think some of this is very low liquidity over a July 4th weekend.
Of course.
You got people pushing markets around. You call it manipulation, but British has been around this a long time, okay? If he's in the market and he can push the market around, it's not manipulation, dude. It's part of the game.
I'm doing it.
Like, I'm going to go do it all day long if you let me. And there are always 3 or 4 people that control these markets. Like, you need them there.
Yeah, you could
control
probably,
is the wrong word, but
you could probably move the price of Bitcoin with probably 1,000 Bitcoin right now.
Absolutely,
right?
dude.
1,000 Bitcoin, 50x leverage with a waterfall strategy at the right time when the order books are thin. You can cause the price of Bitcoin to go down, and then you get, you know, all the news media and everything else behind you. Yeah, so you got all of that going on. But right now, this is, hey, if you're new to Bitcoin and you just bought at 60K, this is part of the game, right? I'm sorry it doesn't go up in a straight vertical fucking line, but grow up. This is part of the game. Your property price didn't do that. The only reason why you didn't get affected was because it wasn't mark to market valuations on a second by second basis.
Didn't have a chart on your house, dude.
Right. So grow the fuck up. Realize this is a long-term asset. It's 15 years fucking old, right? And it's having a tantrum right now. If you are getting scared by this, you don't understand the value of 1 over 21 million. Go back and understand that. And that's how you gain your center again. But at the end of the day, if you're going to have a hissy fit because Bitcoin, you bought it at 60 and it's down to 57, you might as well sell and never come back, right? The game, it's too late now. The game is much further developed than anyone had ever thought at this point, including myself. It's too late. If you as an individual that's watching this YouTube don't buy it, I could give less. I couldn't give a shit, right? Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a monetary network. Yeah, we are here to try and tell you, hey, you need to look at this. But ultimately, does it fucking matter? No, because it's a monetary network, and the people that manage the top 1% of wealth are now in the game. So anything we're saying long term is completely fucking irrelevant anyway. It's either you understand it or you don't.
Yeah. This will be one of those things where people say, gosh, it was just so obvious. And you're like, yeah, and how much did you buy, dude? There's 2 of these people. I think some of the people that got in really early and sold at 3,000. Like, I just see this comment down here. I'm going to, you know, Bitcoin's going to $10,000 by 2025. Like, when I hear these comments, I'm like, bro, why don't you put a short on?
Listen, look, it could do, right? It technically could do, right? Because if enough people sell and everyone sells and everyone said, oh, the
210 million market cap, dude. No chance. At $220 billion. Come on, man. That's not possible.
Listen, look, at the end of the day, all of these people were causing the same amount of FUD when the ETFs were launching. They said these ETFs are just going to turn around and sell their Bitcoin. They're going to take profits, this, that, and the other. Turns out right now, the ETFs are longer actual hodlers more than any Bitcoin miner, more than anyone. So guess what happens when ETFs realize, or the people that are buying through these ETFs realize that they can just keep buying more with the dividend checks that keep coming in from all their other holdings, and more and more and more. You think these fucking ETF people were just born yesterday, like people buying Bitcoin off their Coinbase app. These people are trained. These people have been through fires. They've been through time. They've been through 2008, right? They've been through all of these time periods where they've had to hold assets in order for them to take the time to go up in value. They've been through this shit before. They're not new like you, right? These people understand that I just keep buying. That's all that matters here. They understand the game. They understand that the cash is just going to keep being printed. And more importantly than not, they're getting a phone call. And that phone call says, Larry suggests that you should do this. That's the most valuable phone call if you've got $1 billion in net worth. That's it. Larry says you should do this. Oh, Larry said that? Sure. Grab me 30% of my portfolio.
Yeah. What do you think allocation is going to be for the wealthy, the top, say 5%? Because this whole concept of 0.5%, that is just completely out of the water. 8 months ago, 0.5%, it's going to be awesome. I'm like, dude, it's going to be more than half. Okay.
There's a conversation that I had with someone. I don't know whether I'm supposed to mention the exact details of this conversation, so I'll skirt around it, right? But you'll get the point of what I'm trying to say. The conversation was someone who has a very wealthy family member who has their wealth managed and assets managed by one of these people, right? And the call that they got from their advisor that speaks, so basically that person's wealthy, they've got their capital. They speak to one advisor, and that advisor speaks to all the other asset managers, right? And the call they got was put 7% into Bitcoin. And so he did it, right? The next day, right? And I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars of total asset value here. Put 7% into Bitcoin. So they did it. He said, okay, we'll put 7% into Bitcoin because you called me, right? That's how simple these calls are. And then the message was expect 3 more of these phone calls. You're approaching 30%. This is not a small amount of allocation. You're approaching 30%. But the key thing that I missed out, and I'm sorry I can't offer any more color on that conversation, but it was a private conversation. So I want to be respectful. So just basically take everything I said as a complete pinch of salt, right? But the key thing that I completely missed in this whole thing was that I thought it's going to go, okay, so we've started at the bottom, and then we're going to go to the people that are worth up to $100 million, and then we're going to go to the billionaires. It's happening completely differently, right? It started at the bottom, yeah, because that's just what happened. They're completely missing the people that are worth up to 100 million. It's straight billionaire level, right?
Correct.
It's straight multi-hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's it, right? BlackRock doesn't give a fuck. All they care about is who has the money. And for the first time, the top 1% actually has more money than the bottom 99%. And so that's who's being spoken to. That middle class, again, is just going to be ripped to pieces. And so that is who, we need to focus on, really, and trying to get them into understanding. It's the person with $30 million of real estate is not getting the phone call. The person with $300 million of real estate is getting the phone call. And that's the difference here.
Yeah. No, I totally agree that this is my concern about when you talk about middle income, middle class being around 90 grand. I think that's going to just get carved out, man. I mean,
100%.
It's the only place where the vampire can stick its beak and not get a violent reaction. You're not going to do it to me.
Yep.
I'm gonna call you up every year and go, hey, I want all these fees back. I want all the transactions. Yeah, you can't charge me these $12 fees every month. Give me my credits back. Well, that doesn't happen for a guy with $500,000 in the bank. It's sad.
Right.
You should all call them, by the way, get all those fees reversed because they're just fucking tolls, 100% margin.
Yeah, it's terrifying to think that the people with up to, let's say, $50 million are going to be the ones hit with artificial wealth tax, which is just going to be called an economic cycle, right? That's the way I look at it. I think those people that own, up to $50 million of real estate, they're going to see a wealth tax in the form of a devaluation of their real estate over the next 10 to 20 years, like you've never seen before. Because anyone with over 100 million owns some prime property, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's part of their portfolio. But people with like 30 to 40 to $50 million in net worth, they could just be buying single family homes, right? Especially in America, right? You can build up a portfolio that big of just single family homes. And imagine if there's a 30% write down in that particular asset, single family homes. To me, that's a wealth tax. I don't care which way you look at it. That's a wealth redistribution tax. So, that's the market that's going to get completely screwed, I think.
Yeah, if let's assume Trump gets into office.
Certainly looks likely right now, huh?
Well, if they don't shoot him in the head, he's gonna win.
Yeah.
But they could shoot him in the head. I mean, I actually would like to have a little insurance policy. I'm still not sure we're gonna have an election.
Yeah.
It's the only way for them to, have a little event. That's the only, like, if I'm the Democrats, I'm gonna have an event in the next 2 months, and we're just gonna postpone everything. But if you're Trump, Trump's gonna be good for Bitcoin, right?
Based on everything he's saying, I think President Trump is going to be great for Bitcoin.
Well, let's say not what he's saying. Let's say what he's done. Mnuchin printed more money than God when he was in office, so we know he's going to print.
We know he's going to print. I've
That's
gotten
good for
over
Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, I've gotten over, like, because a lot of Bitcoiners like to say, "Oh, we need to turn this ship around" and all this other shit, and I'm just like, we're past that now. Just go full. Let's just put the foot down on the accelerator.
Some new dollar bills, dude.
Right. Let's just print. Let's put the foot on the accelerator and print through it. Right. Like, at this point, the faster you can get through it, the better it is for everyone, in my opinion. So yeah, look, he's gonna print the shit out of Bitcoin. Not only that, it'd be interesting if Bitcoin becomes the barometer of his success, right? In the first year of his presidency. Can you imagine if Bitcoin's going up and all Trump is doing every press conference is, did you see the price of Bitcoin? Bitcoin is up, 20% in the last week. That's doing good. We're doing really well for the crypto, for the Bitcoin, and the way he talks. Like, Bitcoin, I think, is going to be, I woke up to his speech, the one where he mentioned Julian Assange. I was like, what the fuck am I living through right now? I had no clue that we were going to experience, presidential level pumps coming to the Bitcoin market. And what happens when he starts, offering, when the Trump administration starts offering grants to CleanSpark, right? To build out Bitcoin mining in the United States, which is what CleanSpark's doing, right? Like, what happens? It's this world we're stepping into is phenomenal.
Look, I keep wanting to release you and end this conversation, but you keep giving me things. Have you invested in any miners?
Yes. Yeah. I own a broad spectrum of miners, but my biggest concentration is CleanSpark.
Have you been in those a long time? Like,
no, I don't hold miners long term. I use them tactically to increase. If I can take 1 Bitcoin, for example, and turn it into 6 Bitcoin during a bull run because I'm holding a miner, that's the way I choose to do it. It's my version of a shit coin, right? Except it's actually supporting the Bitcoin network, I would like to think.
Yeah, I am surprised at the altcoin traders that they seem to exclude out of altcoins. Coinbase, Circle, some of these other businesses, they're real businesses. Like, dude, you can invest in miners too, Like,
exactly.
Why would you go do a token when you could do a miner who actually has assets? They have liabilities too. They have debt. I got it. So you like CleanSpark. What else do you love? And what's the logic for you being in the miners? Just because of your gold background, you see the miners run when the underlying commodity price tends to run?
Yeah, there's about a 3 to 6x premium on the miners. So I like that, I also like Riot from this moment. And I like, basically, I had a sizable position in Mara the last cycle, and I decided to get rid of that to really cut that down. And really what I'm focused
the execution, on, they just can't keep their equipment up, right?
Here's my philosophy on miners. most of these miners are pretty good operators, right? Like overall, they manage to get the job done. Yes, Mara is struggling. Yes, Core Scientific went through some bankruptcy, et cetera, et cetera. But this cycle, it's all about America, right? This cycle, it's Bitcoin and America. So I only want to own miners that are America focused and friendly to and enhancing America as a result of Bitcoin, because that's the only nation on earth where the fucking president is talking about how great Bitcoin is and what he's going to do for Bitcoin. So you want to support that by supporting those miners, and I think they'll perform pretty well over the next year or so. I'm always a long-term holder. That doesn't mean I'm going to hold, into the bear market, but I take directional bets on a small portion of my portfolio to try and multiply some Bitcoin out of it. And once I do take that profit, it will all go back into Bitcoin.
Right. What type of time period do you think? I mean, when do you think the miners? Because I own Cypher, Wolf, and Iris or Iron.
Yep.
Equal volume of units, very different dollar value, but all of them have done well. I would not say that I bought great like I bought 3 or 4 months ago. So it wasn't like I was buying the lows.
Yep.
I wasn't buying a
Yep.
year and a half ago, holding all that. When do you see this period though, like get its AI bump? Because it could get a monster bump here from the whole AI piece of this, especially if you start getting some nukes. I mean, I understand 20 to 30% of the nukes are talking about data mining and Bitcoin mining right now, which is accelerated, dude. I thought the fossil fuel guys would go first and then the nukes. The nukes are going first because they have the greatest need. See, this is why I keep going. I think the people that get Bitcoin have a fucking need that they understand.
100%.
Right?
100%.
People keep going, hey, when are you going to get your brother in? I'm like, I don't need to get my brother in, dude. My brother will come in when he needs to come in.
Yep.
Okay? I'm not pushing him.
That's
He
what I always
is
say
going to come in.
Yeah, that's why I always say, like, people always go, but Warren Buffett's not into. I'm like, Warren Buffett is a multi-hundred billionaire, right? Like his life is accomplished right now. I'm talking to you with a $1 million net worth, barely, right? Warren Buffett could get into Bitcoin with 10% of his portfolio when Bitcoin is $600,000 a coin and still maintain his net worth and have a higher net worth than you for the rest of your fucking life.
Correct.
So we're not worried about Warren Buffett here. We're not worried about Grant Cardone, who's a billionaire, right? We're not worried about that. We're trying to figure out how is a person who has got maybe, let's say $500,000 to a 20, 30, $40 million net worth, how are you going to grow that? Because somebody who's worth $1 billion, their objective is to maintain wealth. My objective is to grow my wealth at this point, right? And that's who I try and speak to.
Yeah, grow it with little, without throwing the toilet, the bedroom, and the roof into massive risk, because you're
Right.
moving between asset classes, right? The miners. So what do you think the peak period for the miners will be? Are we talking 3 months? Are we talking 9 months?
No, I think it's probably closer to 9 to 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how would you like to end, sir? Any closing comments?
Look, my closing comments on any one of these streams. Firstly, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And again, I apologize for not getting this sorted a lot sooner. So thank you for having me. For everyone who's American and celebrating 4th of July, have a great 4th of July. But ultimately, there are, as I always like to remind people, there are only 3 rules to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a very, very simple asset to understand. It is 1 over X, 1 over 21 million. You're either going to have it or you're not going to have it. And the only person in control, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is the only person in control of whether you have enough Bitcoin in 20 years or not is you. Either you're going to blame someone, but everyone will know that it was your fault. You fucked it up. And the scariest thing about Bitcoin for me is there's no way to fix it. I can't just print more Bitcoin and give it to you. I can print more money and give it to you and make you feel like you're richer, but I can't just print more Bitcoin and give it to you. So you got to make a choice right now to execute on this. But ultimately, there are always only 3 rules to Bitcoin. In my opinion, that's step 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you're going to get fabulously wealthy.
Dude, I love that. The only thing I would add to that is buy Bitcoin and then go sit on your hands. Okay. Not doing anything is action.
Yes.
This is going to be the hardest part for guys like you and I. Now, I'm actually getting really good at it, but I need to talk to guys like you every now and then and go, hey, man, am I being too lazy? I mean, I'm used to a lot of action. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a little action man. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to do anything. I have the
You know,
best multi-dwelling apartment building corporate on the planet. I just need to chill out and let time do it.
I was listening to Tom Lee talk, and Tom Lee, you know, his team was, you know, parsing some data, and they found that all of Bitcoin's returns in a year basically come from 10 days, right? Now, the enemy of that is a human being's activity bias. If you have activity bias and you feel like you have to be doing something, you could miss one of those 10 days. And if you actually took those 10 days out per year, Bitcoin's actually generated a negative return over its lifespan. Think about that. That's terrifying. So yes,
what's the message there for the simple guy like me? What is the message here? Because I can't pick the 10
put
days.
these under your backside and sit there, like you said. That's it. You don't want, because you don't know which one of those days is going to be one of those 10 days in a year.
Yeah, you're not suggesting people have to pick the 10 days. They just need to
No.
DCA and hold.
Yeah, just hold. In fact, don't even DCA, right? Because the first, you know, and to support the Bitcoin community, Wicked, I gave him, he's on Twitter, I gave him $1,000 to basically and sponsored his study on DCA versus lump sum. And he did a rolling study on lump sum versus DCA at any stage in the market and found that lump sum performs higher than DCA. So he completely destroyed the whole DCA argument, right? The reason why people talk about DCA so much is because they're talking to people that don't have any conviction. I would rather you fucking buy lump sum and then work on your conviction. But that's my personality. So everyone has their own personality. You got to do what you got to do. But the statistics show that lump sum is better than DCA, and the best solution is to sit on your hands.
I would love to be introduced to that guy. I'd like to see that study because I've seen some other studies that would maybe not refute it, but I do a little of both. So I just want to own more Bitcoin tomorrow than I own today.
Let me just clarify something. True lump sum is taking cash that you have and buying Bitcoin with it immediately. True DCA is I've got $100,000 in the bank, and even though it's cash sitting in the bank, I'm only going to drip feed $1,000 a week or whatever into it. So when people say, "Oh, but I'm DCAing because I'm waiting for my monthly paycheck and then buying Bitcoin," that's not DCAing. You're monthly lump sum buying, right? These are two different things. So true DCA is when you've just got some money, it's all sitting there, but for some reason you're going, I'm only going to put in some money per day. Lump sum beats that.
Yeah. It's mostly the way I do the lump sum, but I'll pick a price and just sit there and wait. The best purchases I've made are, look, we're 23% off the high right now. At 57.5, we're about 23% off the 74.3. And I just went into this thing going, look, if I can buy 15 to 25% off the all-time high, I am going to be gold.
Right.
There is not one time in 15 years that I wasn't awesome. And you could apply that to NVIDIA or anything, right? That has this kind of shape to it, right? You just sit there and put in some buy orders, man.
Right.
And go back to work, create fiat and increase the buy orders. That's my strategy. Thank you, dude. Really appreciate you, man. Really appreciate everything you do. You guys should follow this cat. Okay. We need a lot of different opinions, views, perspectives, and messaging. I really love the work you're doing, dude. You're not, you can talk up and you can talk down to people. I like the, you know, bringing more and more people in for education. I can't, you and I sit here, we probably grew up very similar. Maybe not, but I suspect we had similar parenting, I suspect, which is probably a little tough, which I think we probably need more of. But I really appreciate what you're doing for the community and telling people, like you're you're bringing some of the parent. Like most of these people have never had any type of real proper advice on finance and living well. They are like, for me, I define freedom. I think everybody should really ask themselves, what is freedom, and define it, because Bitcoin, we're in an event right now. And this is what I loved about the first time I heard you talk. We're in an event right now that your comfort is being decided right now. All the actions you take right now are getting ready to determine in the next 10 years where you fit in the food chain. I really think that's like no other time before in history. So I really value what you're doing, because like, this is a hard message for most people to accept.
Yeah, likewise, my friend. You're doing a great job too. Look, at the end of the day, the goal is, do you own Bitcoin? And how much of it do you own? And how much of the 21 million supply do you own? If your answer to that is none, you're fucked. If your answer to that is too little, you're probably still fucked, right? You've got to own enough of this asset. And if you're lucky enough to hear the message, like I was lucky enough to hear the message after thinking it was a scam, take it and run with it. Best of luck, everyone.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, friend.
Guys, have a great day. I'm going to pop into this single screen. Thank you so much, British. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great July the 4th. Do me one favor, if you would, retweet the space, share it out with the general public. A couple of announcements. Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I have a space being held with Hitch Slap, an Australian guy who studies one subject a year and becomes really a master at that subject. I think it's really beautiful. We're going to be talking about something called imposter syndrome, Saturday, July 6th at 11 a.m. I think imposter syndrome is a very, very unspoken, undiscussed topic. And if you don't know what it is, I would ask you to go look it up on Google and think about, do you fit in having imposter syndrome, and or have you ever work with someone or work for someone that had it? I can tell you that I have, and it is spectacularly problematic. I think it infects a lot more people than we ever discussed. So we're going to have a really cool, I suspect this will be an 11 a.m. to probably 3 p.m. Space. And I'm expecting a lot of people there, especially entrepreneurs, artists, creators. This impacts you, founders, CEOs. I have yet to meet a CEO or founder that doesn't have this all over them. And some of them are massively successful people, but they're, I would say that they're massively successful on the outside, but really tortured on the inside. So I think it'll be a really good conversation. These are the kind of things that are the mental gymnastics that really get in the way of being effective in your life. So hope that's going to be good. That's Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. PST. Anyway, happy July 4th, guys. Your other job to do is to do something nice for someone today, and don't tell anybody about it. It's a little secret trick I do. Okay, it's a little life hack. So you go out, you do something nice for your mom, your sister, your brother, a stranger. Nobody can know about it. Okay, it's your secret. All right. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. You guys go out, do your deal, and be nice to people.